The movie opens with its protagonist, Faye, in the pouring rain, where he was fighting a horde of other fighters. Although he had many injuries, he was putting up a fair fight against the onslaught of men. His martial arts skills and fast reaction time gave him the upper hand until he was eventually overwhelmed and knocked to the ground.
If it costs me my final heartbeat,
In a daze, he recalled his youth with his father when they ran an orphanage and did their best to save lost children. He remembered one day they stumbled upon a boy who had passed out from exhaustion. In an attempt to save his life, they tried acupuncture. Faye became invested in the boy's life and promised to save him, claiming that he was invincible. The movie then flashes forward in time and gives a history lesson about the country's dark times. Many souls were lost at sea because of unsafe work hazards and corrupt capitalism. Two gangs, the Black Tiger Gang and the North Sea Gang, take center stage as mobsters with many monopolies. In a style typical of a mob, they were replacing their lowly grunts quickly with desperate workers trying to make a living. Within the Black Tiger Gang's hierarchy, three bosses are introduced: North Evil, the Ruthless Guy, Black Crow, the Gold Digger, and Old Snake, the Perv. Each of them controls the gang equally as acting generals. Faye, also known as Little Faye, decided that he wanted to be one of the bosses of the gang. He was among a group of fighters called the Daredevil Warriors, who were considered elite as longtime members of the gang. The Daredevil Warriors were called in to meet the head of the organization, Master Lee. A traitor who had been caught was killed for his misdeeds in front of everyone. While everyone else was flinching at the sight, Faye stood strong and unmoved, unafraid of death. He was the only one who didn't flinch, even when hot tea was poured onto the hands of each member. The narrator remarked that he was a true brat. The Daredevil Warriors were given the assignment to kill the head of their rival gang, and whoever achieved this goal would be named a Black Tiger and join Master Lee's side as one of the Tiger Generals. The film then fast-forwards in time, and Faye is locked in an epic battle with the leader of the North Sea. He only slightly struggles as he manages to decapitate him with his own sword. In an attempt to escape, he jumps out the window and into the street. The movie then cuts back to the scene from the beginning, and a long scene shows Faye single-handedly kicking hundreds of gang members. He was only able to escape when one of his fellow gang members set off fireworks to distract everyone and pull Faye to safety. Then, at the Black Tiger headquarters, everyone surrounded an unconscious Faye, impressed by his achievement. Master Lee adopted him as his son, thus making him a leader among the gang. He instructed everyone that Faye was not allowed to die, and scolded his three other sons for lacking the killer instinct that Faye had. Another member of the Daredevil Warriors, whom Faye had met earlier, took care of him. The man imposed himself on Faye as a friend, insisting that they were now best buds. Faye didn't necessarily agree, but let him stick around. As Faye tried to recover from his injuries, he thought back to his childhood again. He and his adoptive siblings were quite close, but he lost a girl named Little Fa to a gang member. Elsewhere, the new head of the North Sea Gang, the son of its former leader, vowed to take vengeance. Faye got a cool tiger tattoo, and the audience found out that his dad was a black tiger as well. The audience also learned about the keys that opened the vault with all of the gang's money. Later that night, Faye was officially inducted as the fourth son of Master Lee, and the Black Tigers completely took over the pier. Some time passed, and Faye settled into his role as a mob boss. He had a side chick named Orchid and regularly had nightmares about Little Fa, worried that she had become a prostitute. The audience learned more about his past, discovering that a fire had killed his father and burned down the orphanage where he grew up. At dinner, Faye was accepted by the gang as a member of the family, with the exception of North Evil. The narrative described a lot of jealous brother vibes, and while the other brothers tried to get along with Faye, North Evil tried to instigate a fight. Faye kept his cool and managed to give him a verbal beating instead, which sparked a heated fight between North Evil and Black Crow. The two had a clear distaste for one another, and only Master Faye was able to put them in their place. Elsewhere, the audience caught up with Faye's childhood friends, Fiery and Chun. They seemed to be doing all right. Fiery clearly liked Chun, but Chun didn't reciprocate his feelings because she was hung up on Faye. The next day, the Black Tiger Gang was tasked with getting 300 bodies for a shipment across the sea. Master Li accepted the offer, and he and Faye had a powwow about how to lure out the new head of the North Sea. The story then gave a peek into Faye's life after his father's death, revealing that he and his brother were taken in by a monk and trained in martial arts for many years. When they finally returned, they formed a group called the Orphan Gang. With the new information that Faye had gathered as a son of Master Li, Fiery and his gang ambushed Old Snake for the golden key that had been entrusted to him. A plan that had been many years in the making began to unfold. They quickly killed Old Snake by crushing him with bamboo and kicking him into an outhouse. But instead of stealing the key, they made a mold of it for their scheme. In the wake of Old Snake's death, the gold key was entrusted to North Evil. This was where the plot thickened. Knowing that Black Crow and North Evil disliked each other, Faye plotted them against each other with the fake gold key. To make sure that Faye wasn't lying, Black Crow tested the key on the vault and foolishly showed Faye the whereabouts of the gang's money. With Black Crow successfully in the fold, Faye convinced him that North Evil was out to betray the gang. Faye then dropped the information on the vault to his brother, and a plan to rob the vault began to unfold. Using spy techniques like hiding notes in the mouth of a fish and in the seams of a dress, the two groups coordinated their efforts. On a side note, Faye's side chick was also the one communicating directly with his childhood sweetheart Chun, and the jealousy was palpable. When Chun saw them together, Orchid took advantage of Faye's mixed feelings about Chun and tried to convince him to give them up and focus on his path to the top. That night, the lowered amount of guards finally lured out the head of the North Sea gang. He tried to ambush Faye and Master Li when they were seemingly alone, but the man forgot that they were martial arts masters. Master Li was surprisingly spry for his age and went to work against the background fodder while Faye got into a one-on-one fight with the head honcho. The match was very closely fought, and Faye nearly lost a few times. It was only with the quick assistance of Master Li that Faye escaped a fatal blow and managed to defeat the man. He tried to spare him at first, but Master Li kicked the sword into the man's gut and killed him. Across town, the Orphan Gang was causing chaos. They set a bunch of buildings related to the Black Tiger Gang on fire, which lured out Black Crow. Many of the Black Tiger members tried to stop Fiery, but they were no match for him, and he quickly got to work, killing the waves of fighters. With Black Crow separated from the rest of the gang, he was surrounded by Faye and his gang. Chun's parents were killed by Black Crow, and with Faye's help, she finally took revenge and killed him. While that was happening, Fiery may or may not have been getting overwhelmed by the onslaught of fighters. Chun and Faye had a little heart-to-heart, and Faye admitted that he had feelings for her. This was unfortunate timing because when Faye returned, he found Fiery strung up and bloodied. He was instructed to beat him up, but the commotion of the vault being raided drew their attention outside. Faye and Fiery took the opportunity to have one last conversation. Fiery accepted his fate and knew that he must die to maintain Faye's cover. Their dream of freeing the slave trade had to take priority over Fiery's life. Despite Faye arguing against it, he allowed Fiery's fate to unfold. When Master Li returned, he asked Faye to cut out Fiery's tongue. Faye almost did, but was interrupted when Black Crow's body was brought in. It had a bruise with the same shape as North Evil's cane, and the situation made him look very suspicious. When North Evil tried to interrogate Fiery, Fiery whispered into his ear and killed himself against the sword pressed against his neck. The dramatic death made it look like North Evil was trying to cover up his tracks, and thus Master Li grew even more suspicious of him. Fiery's death really affected Faye as he thought back to their time on the mountain together. It was only by chance that he was the one who infiltrated the gang. It could have just as easily been him that was strung up and killed. On the following day, Faye cried to Orchid about Fiery's death. Without his best friend, he questioned if everything they had been doing was worth it. With North Evil being one of the last sons alive, he was next in line for the throne. However, if he was killed, it would make Faye the obvious suspect, especially if he had failed to locate the 300 missing workers they planned to sell. Faye's little buddy from the beginning of the movie overheard this, but decided to keep it to himself. At the harbor, he played a blind man to tell a story that indicated a mole was on the premises. Upon hearing this story being told, Master Li commanded the storyteller to listen to each of the members' voices and pick out the one he recognized. One by one, each member whispered into the man's ear. When it was Lee's turn, he told the blind man that this group was the one that caused all the chaos. Being one of the people to benefit from last night's raid, he covered for Faye and cleared him of suspicion. That night, North Evil went for a nice little spa day by himself. Unfortunately for him, he was interrupted by Orchid, who revealed that her real name was Fa, as in the girl who was kidnapped when Faye was a kid. When she found him 3 years ago, she saved him. She never revealed her identity to him and gained his trust. But as much as she loved him, she was not the one he loved. She told North Evil that because of this, she wanted to find a new sugar daddy. She lured him in with her charm, and at the very last second before he forced himself on her, she tried to kill him. North Evil was fast, however, and quickly countered her attempt. He drowned her in a bath before moving on to the next woman, Chun. But Chun caught him by surprise and slit his throat. At the cost of Fa's life, they were able to take the life of North Evil. Elsewhere, during one of Faye's escort missions with the boss, he discovered the whereabouts of the 300 missing slaves. Completely unaware of his friends' deaths, Faye didn't take the news very well and demanded a revolution as recompense. Now that all the pieces had fallen into place, it was time to raise hell. He buried yet another childhood friend next to Fiery, and alongside his hundreds of fellow oppressed orphans, they began the Great Revolt. With his cover blown, a manhunt began, and the city began to revolt. It was an all-out war between the orphan gang and the Black Tigers. Faye did his best to train his army, and in the midst of the chaos, everyone began to take a side. Even his little buddy showed up, turning out he was equally as not just a comic relief. His guerrilla fighters set the 300 slaves free, and together they marched to the front of the Black Tiger Gang's facility. In a classic kung fu movie fashion, Faye challenged Master Lee to a duel. To avoid any more bloodshed, both agreed. Faye was brought into the building, and he lit a couple of candles to set the mood. With the intention to burn down the entire dock to set the people of the city free, Faye began his epic fight to the death against Lee. The fight intensified. Things fell from the ceiling, almost killing Faye, and he got kicked into the fire, which he shrugged off in probably one of the coolest ways possible. The fire only got worse, though, as the battle continued. The Black Tiger Gang tried to put it out while the rest of the civilians looked on helplessly, despite how both fighters were. The fire even began to affect them. They felt the burning heat of the fire at their feet, and it forced him to continue climbing into the rafters. The fight went on, with both fighters heavily affected by the heat, and Faye almost fell to his death. But by the skin of his teeth, he managed to escape and reposition himself for the fight. And we got a series of acrobatic movements. Faye was able to knock Lee off the rafters. He tried to be the hero and save him from falling to his death, but Lee refused his help and allowed himself to be engulfed by the flames. With the death of Master Lee, Faye opened up his own business and oversaw a more just city run by him and his gang of orphans. So, what did you think of the movie? Leave it in the comments below, and if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you in the next video.